Hello friends, welcome back to my studio. I hope you're well. Let's talk about the big scary white canvas. I hear a lot of people have trouble with beginning a painting, and having this white surface can be quite fearful and constricting. So I've come up with 16 ways that you can use to help overcome this idea of the white canvas being a scary beginning point or a scary thing. I've decided I will make a PDF of this as a free download from my website, selinawilsonart.com.au. I know some people might find it easier in a written form, so that is available for you as a free download. And I also have a few other PDFs there, one on colour, and I'm adding to it all the time. I'm going over past vlogs and anything that I think could be useful as a script. I'm creating a PDF of that, and they are all free for you over on the website. Go to the main page that says for creatives and you will find all of those PDFs there for you, and I hope you find them really useful. So let's get into these tips about the big scary white canvas and how to conquer those fears. So tip number one is about using a coloured gesso. Sometimes it's just the actual white surface that can be the stumping, the stump, can be the hump. What's the word there? So Matisse have, you know that I like the Matisse brand. Matisse have, I think, about 39 coloured backgrounds that you can use as gesso. Gesso is paint with gypsum and baking soda. Gypsum's like sand, and it gives a tooth to the surface when it's applied, and it helps the paint grip. It also works as a barrier if you're using oil paint to protect the canvas from the oil in the oil paint. So you can create your own coloured gesso just by adding any of your other paints into your pot of gesso and painting that on. You might like to use a cheaper student grade type paint for that as well. And yeah, just create a coloured gesso and paint that onto your canvas. Or if you've already got the gesso on, you can just paint any colour you like over that. Sometimes just having a different colour than white can be really helpful. And it can be really fun if your painting is if the plan is to have a lot of warm colours. A cool background can be a really nice foundation, or the opposite, if you're going to end up with a lot of cool colours, it can be nice to start with a warm background. So there's lots you can do to the surface before you've even started to really create the painting. And Van Gogh used this idea really beautifully in his painting Starry Night over the Rhone, where he put white paint under the yellow of the stars, and it's that makes the stars seem to twinkle. Tip number two is using a thin wash. Often oil painters will use this using sienna, and they'll paint the whole surface very thinly in a thin wash of the sienna. And then because the oil paint stays wet for so long and it can be manipulated for a while, just using a rag to take out any areas, so creating those kind of highlight areas and leaving areas that then become the dark areas. And this is an old painting of mine showing that technique in an old self-portrait. Tip number three I've called waking up the surface. Using charcoal or pencil or a water-soluble crayon or pastel, and just really making very gestural, quick marks on the surface, and then coming in with either some gesso, white paint, or even something like a matte medium, going over those, smudging some of the lines. If you're working abstractly, it can give you a real sense of what the painting might become, just by really just unintentionally making marks and smudging and waking the surface up. Tip number four is build background. Working firstly with pasting on some mixed media papers, music sheets, serviettes, things like that can very quickly help build the background for you to begin painting over. And also really slapping on paint using a spray bottle, letting the paint dribble down, can create different marks as well. Squeegees, sponges, spatula, like cake decorating spatulas, or your spatula knife to really move the paint around can be a really good way to get the foundation down, and you'll have barely any white canvas left then to scare you. Writing an intention or a feeling or perhaps a song lyric down first on the canvas can help inspiration and give a guide to where you're going. And you might want to leave some of these words visible in the final piece. It can be quite a nice thing. Tip number 6 is working with a reference photo. Having an idea before you come to sit at the canvas can be very helpful, and you can then grid up your image and do a corresponding grid to your canvas, so you have good direction on where the image is going to sit and what you're going to do. If you don't want to work with the grid lines, you can pick out the compositional perhaps lines and particular shapes in your image that you can start to put on the canvas, and working in blocking in your darks is a really great way to build a solid foundation. Tip number 7 is grids. Working in thumbnails in your visual diary or on loose paper, working out some different compositions, playing around with paint can help give you another reference for when you're then at the easel. And of course the masters did this a lot. Here's an example of Raphael, who did studies on different positions of figures to help decide where things were going to go, so when the final artwork was done he could just go straight ahead. Tip number 8 is to let go of perfection. Take the pressure off yourself. Let go of the notion that these first layers have to be amazing and something wonderful and exceptional. Remember, these first marks will be completely covered in the final piece, so don't rush to the finish line. These are just beginning points. Play, make marks, do anything. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just let go and play. Tip number 9 is working at speed. Coming at the painting very, very quickly, slapping on, throwing paint at the surface even. Just working very, very quickly can help you stop overthinking it and just get some paint on the surface. Tip number 10, working on more than one painting at a time can help split your focus so you're not so attached to the one piece. And going back and forth between several paintings can help spread your attention so you don't become so narrowed in on something and then becoming stuck. Tip number 11 is a regular routine. Art is a practice. This is a learned thing. It's about doing it time and again. That will make it much easier for you to do, and allow yourself the time to develop this skill. Tip number 12 is focus on the process. Stop rushing to the finish line. Don't think about the end product. Think about the doing. Perhaps don't come with a big goal in mind. Just say, I'm just going to put a mark here, and now I'm going to put a mark there, and just keep responding to those marks and let the painting evolve organically. Tip 13, tune into your mood. How are you feeling today? Is there a particular colour you're drawn to that would be a nice colour for you to begin the painting with? Tip 14 is free yourself. Warm up your body and your mind by doing little 2-minute, 5-minute or 10-minute sketches, just random things, perhaps looking in the mirror and sketching yourself or sketching something in the studio. It'll take the preciousness off things because you're just doing a little sketch, and it will really help invigorate you and get your mind switched on to that you're in your space and you're ready to create. Tip number 15, and I have said this one before, spend time in your space. Sit in your space, read an art book, shuffle through and rummage through your supplies. Just be in your space. It can really help transition you out of your daily life and into your creative self. And our last tip, number 16, is to look after yourself. Creating art takes a lot of energy. If you come into your studio where your cup is only half full or running on empty, you're not going to have a lot to give to your practice. So make sure you get lots of sleep, stay hydrated, come into your studio full of energy and vitality, and that will help you a lot in your practice. So that's it. It really is that simple. Some practical tips of letting go of the fear and not seeing the canvas as something big and scary, but a space that is full of possibilities and opportunity. And mostly, stop trying so hard. Don't overthink it. Just go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just play, put down a mark. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're putting down the mark. I hope you find those tips really, really helpful and see you making big, bold steps and advancements in your art practice. So remember, all of this will be available by the time this is going live to download as a PDF from my website. So that's it for this week. I hope you have a lovely week. See you next week. Bye.